here's the visa thing. We have a restriction on entry of certain non-immigrant workers. H-1B non-immigrant visa program was created to bring temporary workers into the United States to perform additive, high-skilled functions. But it has been deliberately exploited to replace rather than supplement American workers with lower-paid, lower-skilled labor. The large-scale replacement of American workers through systemic abuse of the program has undermined both our economic and national security. Some employers using practices now widely adopted by entire sectors have abused the H-1B statute and its regulations to artificially suppress wages, resulting in a disadvantageous labor market for American citizens, while at the same time making it more difficult to attract and retain the highest skilled subset of temporary workers, with the largest impact seen in critical science, technology, engineering, and math fields. The number of foreign STEM workers in the US has more than doubled between 2000 and 2019, increasing from 1.2 million to almost 2.5 million, while overall STEM employment has only increased 44.5% during that time. Among computer and math occupations, the foreign share of the workforce grew from 17.7% in 2000 to 26.1% in 2019. That is a pretty large jump. That is a lot of extra workers. Key facilitator to this influx of foreign STEM labor has been the abuse of the H-1B visa. Information tech firms in particular have prominently manipulated the H-1B system, significantly harming American workers in computer-related fields. The share of IT workers in the H-1B program grew from 32% in fiscal year 2003 to an average of over 65% in the last 5 fiscal years. That's more than double. What the hell? In addition, some of the most prolific H-1B employers are now consistently IT outsourcing companies. Using these H-1B reliant IT outsourcing companies provide significant savings for employers. One study of tech workers showed a 36% discount for H-1B entry-level positions as compared to full-time traditional workers. To take advantage of artificially low labor costs incentivized by the program, companies close their IT divisions, fire their American staff, and outsource IT jobs to lower-paid foreign workers. Further, the abuse of the H-1B visa program has made it even more challenging for college graduates to find IT jobs, allowing employers to hire foreign workers at a significant discount to American workers. These effects of abuse of H-1B visas have coincided with increasing challenges in the labor market in which H-1B workers serve. According to a study from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, among college graduates ages 22 to 27, computer science and computer engineering majors are facing some of the highest unemployment rates in the country, at 61% and 7.5% respectively. I like how they're typing all of this stuff out, because a lot of people still refused that there was any kind of like H-1B visa scamming going on. They're just like, no, it's just the jobs Americans won't do. More than double the unemployment rates of recent biology and art history graduates. Recent data reveals that unemployment rates among workers in computer occupations jumped from an average of 1.98% in 2019 to 3.02% in 2025. Reports also indicate that many American tech companies have laid off their qualified and highly skilled American workers and simultaneously hired thousands of H-1B workers. One software company was approved for over 5,000 H-1B workers in fiscal year 2025. Around the same time, it announced a series of layoffs totaling more than 15,000 employees. Yeah, this is just trying to cut costs. That's pretty ridiculous that you would lay off 15,000 normal employees while applying for 5,000 foreign ones. And it's kind of just not right, bro. Another IT firm was approved for nearly 1,700 H-1B workers in fiscal year 2025. It announced that it was laying off 2,400 American workers in Oregon in July. A third company has reduced its workforce by approximately 27,000 American workers since 2022, while being approved for over 25,000 H-1B workers since fiscal year 2022. It's literally just replacing American labor. That's just exactly what it is. A fourth company reportedly eliminated 1,000 jobs in February, and it was approved for over 1,100 H-1B workers for fiscal year 2025. American IT workers have reported that they were forced to train the foreign workers who were taking their jobs and to sign non-disclosure agreements about this indignity as a condition of receiving any form of severance. This suggests H-1B visas are not being used to fill occupational shortages or obtain highly skilled workers who are unavailable in the United States. NDAs don't protect if you're doing something illegal, but since these companies are working within the operation of the law, but they're doing it in a slimy and disgusting way, I wonder if there's any way for all of these people who are under NDA to not talk about how they're being replaced by an HB visa person. I wonder if there's going to be any, like, recourse for doing that. The high numbers of relatively low-wage workers in the H-1B program undercut the integrity of the program and are detrimental to American workers' wages and labor opportunities, especially at the entry level. In industries where such low-paid H-1B workers are concentrated, these abuses also prevent American employees in other industries from utilizing the H-1B program in the manner in which it was intended, to fill jobs for which highly skilled and educated American workers are unavailable. The abuse of the H-1B program is also a national security threat. Domestic law enforcement agencies have identified and investigated H-1B-reliant outsourcing companies for engaging in visa fraud, conspiracy to launder money, conspiracy under the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, and other illicit activities to encourage foreign workers to come to the U.S. Further abuses of the H-1B program present a national security threat by discouraging Americans from pursuing careers in science and technology, risking American leadership in those fields. A 2017 study showed that wages for American computer scientists would have been 2.6% to 5.1% higher, and employment in computer sciences for American workers would have been 6.1% to 10.8% higher in 2001, absent the importation of foreign workers into the computer science field. It is therefore necessary to impose higher costs on companies seeking to use the H-1B program in order to address the abuse of that program while still permitting companies to hire the best of the best temporary foreign workers. The severe harms that the large-scale abuse of this program has inflicted on our economic and national security demands an immediate response. I therefore find the unrestricted entry into the United States of certain foreign workers who are described in the Section 1 of this proclamation would be detrimental to the interest of the U.S. because such entry would harm American workers, including by undercutting their wages. Accordingly, by the authority vested in me as President by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered restriction of entry, pursuant to sections a whole bunch of numbers of the Immigration and Nationality Act, the entry into the United States of aliens as non-immigrants to perform services in a specialty occupation under section bunch of numbers is restricted except for those aliens whose petitions are accompanied or supplemented by a payment of $100,000, subject to the expectations set forth in subsection C of this section. This restriction shall expire, absent extension, 12 months after the effective date of this proclamation, which shall be 12:01 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on September 21st, 2025. So, they only have to pay the $100,000 once? The restriction shall expire, absent extension, 12 months after the effective date. Per year? Doesn't say per year. Pursuant to sections bunch of numbers, entry into the U.S. of aliens as non-immigrants to perform services in a specialty occupation under section numbers is restricted except for those aliens whose petitions are accompanied or supplemented by a payment of $100,000. Subject to the exception set forth in subsection C, this restriction shall expire 12 months after the effective date. Section B, Secretary of Homeland Security shall restrict decisions on petitions not accompanied by a $100,000 payment for H-1B specialty occupation workers under section numbers of the INA who are currently outside the U.S. for 12 months following the effective date of this proclamation as set forth in subsection A of this section. Secretary of State shall also issue guidance as necessary and to the extent permitted by law to prevent misuse of B visas by alien beneficiaries of approved H-1B petitions that have an employment start date beginning prior to October 1st, 2026. Which makes sense based on the timeline of this going into effect. The restriction imposed pursuant to subsections A and B of the section shall not apply to any individual alien, all aliens working for a company, or all aliens working in an industry if the Secretary of Homeland Security determines, in the Secretary's discretion, that the hiring of such aliens to be employed as H-1B specialty occupation workers is in the national interest and does not pose a threat to the security or welfare of the United States. And I'm gonna take this at what it says, right? So, like, you guys are saying per year. This does not say per year. And, like, the simplest answer is the answer that's in front of you. Instead of assuming conspiracy, it just doesn't say per year. It says this only lasts 1 year. So if they fix it, sure, but I mean, like, I can't really, like, say it says something other than what it says here in plain text. Each worker needs an H-1B. The H-1B needs to be renewed yearly. This means that, no, that's not what it means. The way that it's written here, the way that it's written in this section 1, part A, it's written that you need to pay $100,000 at visa renewal this year, anytime after the date of September 21st, 2025. This payment expires 1 year from now. So if you file for an H-1B visa on September 22nd, 2026, you will not have to pay the $100,000. That is the way that this is written.
Used visa systems in our current immigration system has been the H-1B non-immigrant visa program. This is supposed to allow highly skilled laborers who work in fields that Americans don't work in to come into the United States of America. What this proclamation will do is raise the fee that companies pay to sponsor H-1B applicants to $100,000. This will ensure that the people they're bringing in are actually very highly skilled and that they're not replaceable by American workers. So it'll protect American workers, but ensure that companies have a pathway to hire truly extraordinary people and bring them to the United States to work.
We need workers. We need workers. We need great workers. And this pretty much ensures that that's what's going to happen. I think, Sean, do you agree with that?
Well, they're $100,000 per year. So the whole idea is no more will these big tech companies or other big companies train foreign workers.
So he says per year. So whoever this guy is, he does say per year, but this does not say per year. What Trump signed does not say per year, does not say yearly. That guy, whoever he was, does say yearly. Either he was mistaken by saying yearly out loud, or he's referring to they're going to manually renew this every 12 months. As it stands, this is not yearly, this is not every year. They have to manually renew it in order for it to apply every year. If they're going to do that, yes, I would love that. I hope that's the case. I hope this will be renewed every 12 months. It's set up for a yearly, but it's not. Yeah. They will manually renew it. That is what they mean. Right, but we don't know if they will, right? Because they could just let this expire and people just go back to being corrupt and hiring tons of H-1B workers. Because it doesn't say yearly in the text. Most likely a manual renewal with a push to put it into law. That's what I hope. That's what I hope. But again, because it's not automatic renewal and they have to manually do it, you have to pay attention and make sure they actually do manually renew it a year from now. Manual renewal also depends on who's in office. In 3 years, it could be dead. That's the big worry, because the legalese, the way it's written, it is not a yearly renewable thing. So even if they do manually renew it for the next 3 years, when Trump's out of office, it could not be renewed. Employers shall, prior to filing an H-1B petition on behalf of an alien outside the United States, obtain and retain documentation showing that the payment described in Section 1 of this proclamation has been made. The Secretary of State shall verify receipt of payment of the amount described in Section 1 of this proclamation during the H-1B visa petition process, and shall approve only those visa petitions for which the filing employer has made the payment described in Section 1 of this proclamation. They have to make the payment for any approvals to even begin happening, which is great. Department of Homeland Security and Department of State shall coordinate to take all necessary and appropriate action to implement this proclamation and to deny entry to the United States to any H-1B non-immigrant for whom the prospective employer has not made the payment described in Section 1 of this proclamation. So this sounds like, as well, if somebody has an H-1B and is going to be coming, but their employer hasn't paid the $100,000 after this September 21st date, that they will be blocked entry. That's what that sounds like to me. Like, if they have the visa, but they're not yet in the country, if they try coming after September 21st, they will be denied entry if the $100,000 is not paid. Scope and implementation of restriction on entry. The restriction on entry pursuant to Section 1 of this proclamation shall apply only to aliens who enter or attempt to enter the United States after the effective date of this proclamation as set forth in Section 1A. Okay. So it does not apply to anyone who's already in the country. You think that's correct? And why 4chan is keeping tickets from India to the USA in checkout based 4chan once again? No later than 30 days following the completion of the H-1B lottery that immediately follows the proclamation, The Secretary of State, the Attorney General, and the Secretary of Labor and the Secretary of Homeland Security shall jointly submit to the President through the Assistant to the President and Homeland Security Advisor a recommendation on whether an extension or renewal of this restriction on entry pursuant to Section 1 of this proclamation is in the interest of the United States. So if we had just kept reading earlier, I would have been proven correct far faster. Where after the 1 year expiration date, after the 12 months expiration date that it says in Section 1, all of these people will then submit a recommendation on whether this should be extended or not. Amending the prevailing wage levels, the Secretary of Labor shall initiate a rulemaking to revise the prevailing wage levels to levels consistent with the policy goals of the proclamation, consistent with section bunch of numbers. Secretary of Homeland Security shall initiate a rulemaking to prioritize the admission as non-immigrants of high-skilled and high-paid aliens, consistent with sections bunch of numbers. General provisions, nothing in the proclamation shall be construed to impair or otherwise affect the authority granted by law to an executive department or agency or the head thereof, or the functions of the Director of the Office of Management and Budget relating to budgetary, administrative, or legislative proposals. Proclamation shall be implemented consistent with applicable law, subject to the availability of appropriations. Proclamation is not intended to, does not create any right or benefit, substantive or procedural, enforceable at law, or in equity by any party against the United States, its departments, agencies, or entities, officers, employees, agents, blah, blah, blah. Trump signed it. So yeah, hopefully this gets continuously renewed. I don't want to see this go into effect for just 1 year and then it's dead in the water. Jimmy Kimmel in talks with Disney executives to negotiate return of late night show. I don't want to see that happen. Jimmy Kimmel and Disney are in talks to put his late night show back on the air, according to a report. Comedians, businesses, and legal representatives are in deep discussions with Disney and ABC, trying to hammer out a compromise that would allow Jimmy Kimmel Live to resume its 23rd season, insiders told Vanity Fair. Whether the sparring parties are close to any resolution is unknown, leaving Kimmel and his show in limbo following offensive comments he made this week about the slaughter of Charlie Kirk. Kimmel is reportedly concerned about what a permanent cancellation would look like for his crew in Los Angeles who work on the show, many of whom are still digging themselves out of a financial hole caused by the actors' strike in 2023. Neither Kimmel's team nor Disney immediately responded to the Post request for comment. ABC had warned Kimmel in the past to steer away from political comments, specifically those against President Trump. I really think that when they were trying to buy Fox, they were worried that Trump was going to screw them up somehow, and that's part of why they were so nervous about my comments. I don't think their political beliefs conflict with mine, but if you want to have a big audience, you don't want to piss a lot of people off, and I was pissing a lot of people off, Kimmel told Howie Mandel on Thursday. I think there's a big difference between telling jokes that piss people off, or are just like edgy in general, and then blatantly relaying misinformation that you know is wrong. Kimmel's show is currently on an indefinite hiatus following his controversial remarks about Kirk's assassination. During his opening monologue Monday, the 57-year-old comedian claimed the alleged killer, Tyler Robinson, was a Trump supporter despite authorities revealing he held a leftist ideology. We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it, Kimmel said. The long-running show was officially yanked from the air Wednesday, and Kimmel has since refused dozens of calls to apologize. FCC Chairman Brendan Carr warned Thursday that networks holding TV licenses like ABC, NBC, and CBS have an obligation to serve the public interest, which Kimmel failed to do by appearing to directly mislead the American public. President Trump, often targeted in Kimmel's liberal-leaning monologue, celebrated the move, highlighting his bad ratings and vowing to go after other late-night hosts. Kimmel has hosted the ABC show since 2003. Damn, I didn't know it had been so long. I didn't realize he had had that show for so long. Alleged Charlie Kirk assassin's roommate was problematic before the family kicked him out, a relative says. In St. George, Utah, the transgender roommate of conservative activist Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin was previously kicked out of his parents' house over issues surrounding substance abuse, gender identity, and a persistent video game addiction, a relative told Fox News Digital. Lance Twiggs, who has not been charged with a crime, moved into a townhome in St. George, Utah after living with his grandparents when his father kicked him out. The 22-year-old is also in the process of transitioning from male to female. the relative confirmed. He was kicked out of his parents' home at the age of 18, according to the relative. He shared an apartment in southwestern Utah with 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, who's accused of assassinating Kirk, the co-founder of Turning Point USA, on September 10th at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. Kirk was taken to a local hospital in critical condition following the shooting, where he later died. Officials said Robinson has been charged with aggravated murder, 2 counts of obstruction of justice, and felony discharge of a firearm, causing serious bodily injury, 2 counts of witness tampering, and commission of a violent offense in the presence of a child. Every time I see a still image of this guy, he is just completely gone from this plane of existence. And from seeing the image, alright, I know this is a guy who's a crazy fucking leftist, but I'm gonna give the ever so tiny sliver of, yeah, I could see why people thought this was a groiper. Yeah, no, just if I saw this image and I knew nothing about him, I'd probably be like, yeah, that dude looks like a groiper, man. I get it. He's completely fucked after all. He blinked twice during his arraignment. Watching him during the arraignment really made me think of how Brian Kohberger acted during his arraignment. No soul behind those eyes. His father thought he wasn't being respectful and was problematic, so they kicked him out, the relative said. He then lived with his grandparents, this is the transferee, until he was 18 and graduated from high school. The relative, who asked to remain anonymous, added that the roommate was struggling with substance abuse issues, addicted to video games, and grappling with his gender identity. But the real reason he was acting out was because he was using drugs and alcohol and was addicted to gaming, the relative said. The relative also revealed that Twiggs had always tried to put on the act that he had changed. He moved into a townhome, paid full rent, and there were other college roommates at the time. According to the roommate's relative, he initially moved into the townhome before Robinson, who moved into the house last year. The two were in a romantic relationship, the relative had said. He was maintaining a job and able to pay rent and was technically an adult, the relative told Fox News Digital. The other college roommates eventually all moved out, and he stayed, and Tyler became his roommate. Romantic, what a shock. The AGP is a drug-addicted hikikomori mess. I'm so shocked. It's so surprising. Who could have seen this coming? Family of Mexican father fatally shot by ICE near Chicago wants justice to be done. With law enforcement releasing little information about the death of Silverio Villegas Gonzalez, one advocate said they have to stitch this together ourselves. Nearly a week after a Mexican immigrant was fatally shot by an immigration officer during a traffic stop in the Chicago area, his family in Mexico and his community members continue to seek answers as they call for more transparency in the probe looking into the sequence of events surrounding his death. The Mexican consulate in Chicago and local police confirmed the FBI is leading the investigation into the death of 38-year-old Silverio Villegas Gonzalez, a single father of 2 boys. A spokesperson for the FBI Chicago field office did not confirm or deny their involvement in the investigation, but told NBC News in an email that, as a general matter, we examine the facts with consideration of federal crime statutes. We then proceed as appropriate, whether by investigating or referring the matter to the relevant partners. With law enforcement releasing little information about the ongoing probe, some community members in the Chicago area feel like they have to stitch this together themselves, with quote-unquote no expectation of a real investigation. Brandon Lee, an organizer with the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights. The community is expected to do their own. Speaking to Telemundo Chicago from Mexico, Jorge Villegas Gonzalez, Silverio's brother, said his family wants justice to be done. It's completely devastating the way he lost his life. It's not fair. George said in Spanish. Oh, I fucking said George instead of Jorge. It doesn't seem logical to me to use lethal force like that against someone who's completely unarmed. He literally tried driving his vehicle into the ICE agents. If this is the same guy that we read about a few days ago, my biggest complaint was that they said that ICE agents are now also going to be required to wear body cams, but they haven't been fully distributed out to all ICE agents yet. So they don't think that the ICE agents in this case were wearing body cams. And I hate that, because now we're going to have to hear about these people claiming something that never really happened. We're gonna have a hands up, don't shoot, because there weren't any body cams. I am a proponent of body cams because it doesn't allow people to lie. Relatives and friends of Villegas Gonzalez said he was driving to work Friday morning after having dropped off his sons, who were 6 and 3, at school and daycare. Blanca Mora, Villegas Gonzalez's girlfriend, told Telemundo Chicago that she had been messaging him that morning. He said he was going to get something to eat and head to work, but after that, I didn't hear anything, Mora said in Spanish. She also has to go back. That's because that morning, Villegas Gonzalez was fatally shot by an immigration and customs enforcement officer in Franklin Park, a suburb of Chicago. According to ICE, 2 officers pulled Villegas Gonzalez over, but he resisted arrest and attempted to flee the scene. Ironically, that was the best thing BLM ever did. Advocating body cams bit their narrative in the ass. It did. I fucking love body cams, man. Surveillance footage from a nearby nail salon, broadcast by a local CBS News TV station, shows an SUV blocking Villegas Gonzalez's car. 2 ICE agents are seen by Villegas Gonzalez's car, one on the passenger side and the other on the driver's side. Villegas Gonzalez starts backing up, and as he drives his car forward, the ICE officer standing by the passenger side attempts to go after Villegas Gonzalez. The other officer is not visible in the video anymore. One ICE officer was hit by the car and dragged a significant distance, according to a statement from the Department of Homeland Security, which added the officer sustained multiple injuries and is in stable condition. Fearing for his own life, the officer fired his weapon, striking Villegas Gonzalez, DHS stated. Surveillance footage from a nearby auto shop captured the sounds of at least 2 gunshots. A video from witnesses showed the 2 ICE officers removing an injured Villegas Gonzalez from his car after he crashed into a cargo truck. A video from the cargo truck driver obtained by Telemundo Chicago shows both ICE officers providing first aid to Villegas Gonzalez. According to ICE, both Villegas Gonzalez and the injured officer were taken to a hospital. Villegas Gonzalez died of multiple gunshot wounds at the hospital. The ICE agent, who has not yet been named, was released from the hospital after receiving care for back injuries and lacerations to the hands and knee tears. DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said the injured officer followed his training, used appropriate force, and properly enforced the law to protect the public and law enforcement. DHS policies, which also apply to ICE, state that deadly force should not be used against someone whose actions are only a threat to themselves or property. This does not apply if the person poses an imminent threat of death or serious physical injury to the officer or anyone else, according to a 2023 report from the U.S. Government Accountability Office. The police also state that firearms shall not be discharged solely to disable moving vehicles. I don't think this would count in this place because the moving vehicle was not merely attempting to flee, it dragged an officer. Neither of the officers involved in Villegas Gonzalez's death were wearing body cameras, a senior DHS official told NBC News. This just confirms that it is, in fact, the case that we were talking about a few days ago. According to ICE policies, agents are required to wear body cameras and activate them as soon as practicable at the beginning of an enforcement activity and deactivation when the activity is concluded. But because body cameras have not been distributed across all of ICE, the requirements only apply to officers in places where the cameras have been given out. ICE did not say what the requirement was for the officers involved in Villegas Gonzalez's fatal shooting. At a news conference on Monday, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, a Democrat, said, "We've asked ICE for all of the information around it, and they've given very little. This is the most unusual situation I've seen in my entire lifetime, where we have no transparency and the federal government is not policing itself." Jorge Villegas Gonzalez, Silverio's brother, told Telemundo Chicago, "There are millions of undocumented Latinos in the United States. This happened to us now. Who knows if tomorrow or the day after tomorrow it may happen to someone else. Let this end now." Well, I don't want them to die, but they have to go back. We shouldn't have to shoot them when they try to kill our police officers in a stop to get them deported. But there's millions of them and they all have to go back. Good to know. Get them all the fuck out. Yeah, exactly. Also, very interesting. Very interesting to say this happened to us now. Is Mr. Jorge Villegas Gonzalez here illegally as well? Can we remove him before he puts his own life in danger by attempting to run over an ICE agent? Immigration authorities say they were after Villegas Gonzalez because he was not legally present in the United States and had a history of reckless driving. He is not what he is being accused of. Blanca Mora, Villegas Gonzalez's girlfriend, said in Spanish, "He has no crime." Said in Spanish, "She needs to get deported too." An NBC News review of publicly available records found that Villegas Gonzalez had never been criminally charged. He did plead guilty to 4 traffic violations, including speeding, as recent as 2013. He's here illegally, so he's already broken the law, and he can't manage to follow our road safety rules. So why is he staying here? I feel bad, Mora said as she described Villegas Gonzalez as a single father of 2 boys who was a very serious, reserved person who didn't like problems. He was very responsible. No, he wasn't. If he was responsible, he wouldn't be here illegally. According to the Mexican consulate in Chicago, Villegas Gonzalez was originally from the state of Michoacan. He worked as a cook at a restaurant near the Franklin Park area. Juan Antonio Hernandez, the owner of the restaurant where Villegas Gonzalez worked, described him as a hard worker in an interview with Telemundo Chicago. How could he be a criminal? Hernandez said in Spanish if he would arrive at 11 a.m. and stay until 9 or 10 p.m. when he would stay here working. From there, he would go and pick up his children and go home. Well, he should have done this as a legal resident and not as an illegal criminal. He had just dropped his children at the daycare and school. They were waiting for him to come back for them, but he never did, Hernandez said. Hopefully ICE picked them up as well. A memorial full of candles, flowers, pro-immigration signs, and pictures of Villegas Gonzalez now stands at the site of the fatal shooting. The Mexican consulate in Chicago had told NBC News in a statement that the Villegas Gonzalez family had requested their assistance and support to repatriate his remains to Michoacan. People don't even understand that just being there is a crime. And this is what I said when we read the first article, when this first happened. It's like, he would still be alive if he was deported ages ago. And like, if we had actually done mass deportations years ago, he would be one of the people who probably would have left without any kind of incident. Now, when media is whipping up everybody into like some sort of terrified frenzy, yeah, some of these people might put themselves in danger by trying to run over the ICE officers. And that's not something that you're allowed to do. The consulate is in contact with Cook County forensic authorities to expedite the process once the examinations are completed. The statement reads, they are also assisting the family with custody matters for Villegas Gonzalez's children and will coordinate all necessary legal action for the reunification with their family. Good. I hope the children are reunified with their family back in Mexico. Americans are lucky that most of the migrants are there illegally. Most migrants, even the struggle snuggers in the UK, are there legally, so the UK patriots will have to not only get the government to deport, but also denaturalize. I mean, there's some issues with that here, but yeah, we are, I guess... I don't know how much of the migrants are there legally, because with the whole migrant crisis that had been happening in Europe since like 2015 or so, I don't know how those guys have their statuses, especially when there was like so much lying about identities. Internet Zen Master, thank you. He is not what he's being accused of. Here illegally and committing traffic violations. Also, pro-immigration signs at the site of the shooting is absolutely ghoulish by the community organizers. Yeah, it's pretty bad. The years of negligent enforcement have given these types a deranged sense of entitlement, so any legal action causes them to act in deranged ways. I.e. the guy who attacked ICE with a weed whacker? Yeah, 100%. They're just so used to our laws not actually being enforced, as well as being given special privileges to get around quite a few laws that they wouldn't be able to if they were American citizens. So the attitude of entitlement does not surprise me, but it is annoying. It is annoying. That's a segment. Today in shooting news, there was that guy that shot up the ABC building after Kimmel got suspended. Now we have some more information on that guy, and wow, to literally no one's surprise, anti-Trump shooter fired 3 shots into ABC building after Kimmel's suspension. Who could have seen that coming? I'm so shocked. Now will CNN spin this into Trump voter shoots at freedom of speech? Oh boy. Oh boy. The 64-year-old man who police said fired 3 shots into a local ABC studio after late-night comedian Jimmy Kimmel was suspended this week, reportedly had a social media account that showed a clear hatred for President Donald Trump. Variety reported an X account for Anibal Hernandez Santana. The suspected gunman contained a steady stream of anti-Trump commentary. Where is a good heart attack when we need it the most? Please join in my thoughts and prayers for the physical demise of our fearful leader. Hernandez Santana posted on Thursday. As a person who has all of their hinges firmly in place, clearly. And in July, Variety found posts where he said he's ready to fight like hell to oppose the Trump administration. The authoritarian oligarchy is now complete, he posted. I beg these people, please live in reality again. CBS Plus caving, big law firms in DC, the subservient FBI and AG, university president stepping down, fanboy SCOTUS, public radio, ICE goons. We're going to have to fight like hell. Rules don't apply if election was stolen. Fight. What do you mean by this? The thing that's not happening happened again. Hernandez Santana was arrested early Saturday morning after ABC 10 in Sacramento was hit 3 times during a drive-by shooting on Friday. He was booked and charged with assault with a deadly weapon, a negligent discharge of a firearm, and shooting into an occupied building. Bail was set at $200,000, and Hernandez Santana is scheduled to have a court appearance on Tuesday afternoon. The shooting happened 1 day after a protest was held in front of ABC 10 following Kimmel's suspension. About 15 people showed up for the protest. The Sacramento Bee reported. I think more people than that showed up to like my trash can meet and greet, dude. Like Kimmel had his show pulled after he said the person who shot Charlie Kirk was a Trump supporter. We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, Kimmel said on his show last Monday. Kimmel was criticized by many for his claim, considering the reported details point to Tyler Robinson, Kirk's suspected killer, being a leftist. Robinson reportedly had a romantic relationship with his trans roommate, used phrases associated with Antifa, and in text messages released on Tuesday, said he shot Kirk because of the conservative influencer's quote-unquote hatred. Utah officials have said Robinson was indoctrinated in far-left ideology in the years leading up to Kirk's murder. Hernandez Santana, according to Variety's report, was previously a legislative director for the California Federation of Teachers and is now retired and focused on full-time parenting, per his LinkedIn. He's 64 years old. The fuck does he mean full-time parenting? He was fired from a previous job in 2018 after getting into a verbal confrontation with his supervisors, who ended up calling the police in 2018, Variety added. Tegna, which owns ABC 10, issued the following statement to KCRA3 in Sacramento. We can confirm that shots were fired into our station at KXTV earlier today. While details are still limited, importantly, all of our employees are safe and unharmed. We're fully cooperating with law enforcement and have taken additional measures to ensure the continued safety of our employees. ABC News Live on Saturday morning reported the FBI was involved in finding Hernandez Santana after a large manhunt. The program said there was no motive for the attack yet and did not reference the suspect's hatred of the president on social media. If he's talking about how we need to fight back against the Trump autocracy and all of his little minions, and then Jimmy Kimmel gets fired for promoting fake news, and it's the counter narrative to the real narrative that's actually existing in real life, I think we already know the motive. I think we know what I'm so tired. I'm so tired of this no motive nonsense. I was like, holy shit. Kill the president. What did he mean by this? Leftist mad that leftist is fired, so leftist fires shots at leftist company. I am so confused. The company bent the knee to the dictator, therefore they are not really an ally. The fourth horseman of no clear motive, true. Textbook right-wing violence. Man charged with murder in connection with shooting at Sky Meadow Country Club in Nashua. AG says he believes there is no hate motive in the case. I know, that's really funny because I brought up 2 articles. I brought up 2 articles about this Nashua shooting. AG says he believes there's no hate motive in the case. Look at this other title. Witness says New Hampshire country club shooter yelled "Free Palestine" during wedding violence, but it's no motive. We can't know what the shooter was thinking. It's all so tiresome. In Nashua, New Hampshire, a man was charged with second-degree murder after a shooting Saturday night at a country club in Nashua, in which one person was killed and several other people were injured, some while trying to flee the chaotic scene. The Attorney General's office at Hunter Nadeau, 23 of Nashua, allegedly shot and killed Robert DeCesare, 59, in an attack in the Sky Meadow Country Club in Nashua. This is a question you could ask pretty much any shooter, right? Because, like, their targets never make any fucking sense. Why did he go to a country club hosting a wedding to kill people in the name of Palestine. How does this even make any sense with their ideology? Like, what the fuck is happening? NATO, meanwhile, is scheduled to be arraigned at 1 p.m. Monday. Investigators said NATO shot and wounded 2 other people, including one who worked at the restaurant and one who was a patron. Meanwhile, at least 4 other people suffered non-gunshot injuries as they tried to flee. Nashua Fire Rescue said on Sunday that 2 people who were wounded were taken by vehicle to the Spitbrook Road fire station, where aid was given to 1 person with a gunshot wound to the face and 1 person with a hand laceration. Jesus Christ. Both were taken to Southern New Hampshire Medical Center, and the gunshot victim was flown to a Boston hospital, fire authorities said. Fomella said the victim flown to a Boston hospital is in critical condition, but the victim is said to be stable. Nashua Fire Rescue said the people who suffered non-gunshot injuries included a broken hand, blunt force trauma, chest pains, panic attacks, and lacerations. There's no known connection between the victim and the shooter, police said. Attorney General John Fomella said NATO previously worked at the Sky Meadow Country Club for about a year, though the nature of his employment status was not known. Doesn't this seem to also be a trend? Like, this guy worked at the country club previously and then went to shoot it up. That trans shooter, like, his mom had worked at the church and he had gone to the church previously as well. That other trans shooter, I think in Tennessee, the female to male one, didn't she previously attend that Christian school that she shot up? Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she had previously attended the school. It looked like a target that he was going right for this person, said witness Tom Bartleson. I feel terrible for him. Bartleson said NATO was saying things during the shooting, sorry. He just came out and said, "The children are safe and free Palestine," Bartleson said. The children are safe? Yeah, not with you waving around a gun and shooting people, you lunatic. What the fuck? What is wrong with this dude? Despite reports of Free Palestine comments made by the suspect, investigators said he also made several other statements. Okay, but what are those statements? The statements were meant to create chaos in the event. Okay, but then why don't you tell us what the other statements are? How about you tell us what those other statements are if they were just meant to create chaos and not pointing to an ideology that he held? Where are those other statements? Formella said it is believed there is no hate motive in connection with the case. Patrons credited for acting after the shooting. Formella said the shooting, while tragic, could have been a much worse situation. He credited the action of patrons after the shooting. I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the patrons in the restaurant who acted selflessly and quickly, with more care for their fellow citizens than for themselves, to help keep this a contained event and minimize this tragedy as much as they could. A woman who spoke to WMUR's sister station WCVB on Saturday night at the Nashua Police Department identified herself as Dee Cesare's mother. Evie O'Rourke said her son jumped in front of his wife and daughter to protect them. He kicked the door open and Rob just went right for him and protected his family, O'Rourke said. We don't know any information more about it other than that they have arrested him, but boy is he going to be missed. He's just a great guy. This is questionable grammar, but they're saying that the victim is going to be missed, not the shooter guy. Law enforcement officers from more than a dozen communities in New Hampshire and Massachusetts responded to the scene when calls about the shooting came in at around 7:30 p.m. in audio obtained by News 9 from Broadcastify.com. Dispatchers can be heard alerting police that someone had been shot in the face. It's so shocking that we just can't believe it. We think everybody's lying. This can't have happened, O'Rourke said. They were just enjoying a meal, a succulent Chinese meal. I added that part, that's not in the article. They were just enjoying a meal at their country club. And in comes the guy, shot the maitre d', and it was right in front of him. And I guess he died right there. Dee Cesare lived at Sky Meadow and was dining there with his family when the shooting occurred. His thought was to take care of his family, O'Rourke said, and his daughter's getting married in 6 weeks, so it's going to be very tough. That really fucking sucks for his family. Holy shit. More than 100 people were at the country club at the time of the shooting. Nashua Fire Rescue said they helped about 100 people from the scene to the Spitbrook Road firehouse. I just want to Spitbrook Road. Most by foot. Some were taken with the department's UTV. NATO was detained at the scene. Police originally thought that there might have been another suspect, but they later confirmed there was only one shooter. Investigators said NATO will likely face other charges. Sources told News 9 Investigates that police were looking for a Toyota RAV4 that may be connected to the shooter. A vehicle fitting that description was seen being towed away near the scene late Saturday night. In a statement, Sky Meadow Country Club said that Sky Meadow Country Club is cooperating with law enforcement officials as they conduct their investigations. Because that investigation is ongoing, Sky Meadow Country Club cannot comment at this time. In a statement, Governor Kelly Ayotte said, "Joe and I are praying for the victims and their family of the tragic shooting last night at Sky Meadow Country Club. I want to thank Chief Rourke of the Nashua Police Department and all of the first responders who reacted quickly to secure the scene and detain the suspect. The Attorney General's office will continue to assist the Nashua Police Department with this ongoing investigation." So that was a big chunky amount of information about the Nashua shooting. Witness says New Hampshire country club shooter yelled "Free Palestine" during wedding violence. Hopefully this article, if he shouted other nonsense, will have him say that. The shooter, who killed a man and wounded 2 other adults during a wedding at a New Hampshire country club on Saturday, yelled "Free Palestine" as the chaos unfolded, a witness told the Associated Press. Tom Bartleson of Pepperell, Massachusetts, told the outlet that he was at Sky Meadow Country Club in Nashua, New Hampshire, for his nephew's wedding when he heard the individual say, "The children are safe and free Palestine." Bartleson added that the shooter appeared to be targeting someone. So, the other article said that it appears that the shooter and the victim had no relation, so the guy could just appear crazy. But also, Bartleson was the guy who gave the information in the other article, and we don't have any other phrases besides the same 2 that were reported. "Getting together for a dance for the bride and groom, and then all chaos went off," he said. "We heard about 6 shots and everybody ducked for cover, and the next thing you know, we're rushed into safe spots and things like that." New Hampshire Attorney General's office identified the suspect as 23-year-old Hunter Meadow, and he's accused of fatally shooting the 59-year-old Stephen DeCesare. Authorities said there is no known connection between the 2 men. Meadow is also accused of shooting and wounding 2 other adults, and authorities did not immediately identify or provide an update on the conditions of the wounded victims. Suspect was detained at the scene and taken into custody. Meadow is charged with 1 count of second-degree murder for knowingly shooting DeCesare, the Attorney General's office said. Additional charges will likely be brought, including for the additional shooting victims, Attorney General John Formella said in a news release. Investigators were still working to determine a motive. Oh, gee. New Hampshire Senior Assistant Attorney General Peter Hinckley said, Meadow is expected to be arraigned Monday at the 9th Circuit Court in Nashua. Hey, that means Tuesday we'll have more information on this. We'll have more information on Tuesday. NPR says social media is shattering America's understanding of Charlie Kirk's death. When Vice President Vance hosted an episode of conservative activist Charlie Kirk's podcast on Monday, he blamed an incredibly destructive moment of left-wing extremism for Kirk's assassination. That same night, talk show host Jimmy Kimmel said the MAGA gang was desperately trying to characterize the killer as anything other than one of them. Kimmel was suspended indefinitely for his comments, raising concerns about free speech. So I already see where this article is going, and they're going to try and conflate what is actually viewable with your own eyes in reality and people's made-up delusions. I see where we're going here. The disparate statements from the conservative vice president and the liberal talk show host revealed a troubling fact. There's a deep schism in how Americans understand the assassination that took place a little more than a week ago. There wouldn't be a schism. You literally just need to use your eyes and see what information is available to you. It's very obvious this person was a leftist, was indoctrinated with violent leftist rhetoric. There's no other way to fucking slice it, brother. That gap is being widened by social media. More than half of US adults now get their news sometimes or often from social media platforms, and those platforms are fragmenting how Americans view what's happening. I have a feeling that these people were the same people who were like screeching about needing fact checkers, and the fact checkers basically just silenced political dissidents. It wasn't even about the facts. It was just about whatever was acceptable to say on mainstream platforms in public. American politics has long been home to conspiracies and even fracturings of understanding around events, said Nicole Hemmer, a professor of history at Vanderbilt University. Is this whole article going to be poised to eventually just be like, well, there's no way to really know what happened because we have all of these conflicting narratives that people deeply believe in. We're never going to really know why Charlie Kirk was murdered. I have a feeling this is the direction they're going in. What's new is the speed at which all of this is shared, the ease of access that people have to it, and the algorithmic push, she said. I have seen the most horrible thing and you need to see this too. Social media disseminated the act of violence that took Charlie Kirk's life in a matter of minutes. Kirk had just opened his event at Utah Valley University and many students were filming with their phones when a single shot rang out. Within the hour, videos of his death flooded the web. The images were uploaded and re-uploaded by news outlets, independent journalists, influencers, and others. From a forensic perspective, the images built up a remarkably consistent version of a major news event just moments after it happened. Multiple videos, together with a statement from the university, suggested the sniper had laid prone on the roof of the Lossy Center roughly 135 yards away from his target. The rifle shot rang out at 12:23 local time. I don't like how they say from a forensic perspective the images built up a remarkably consistent version of a major news event moments after it happened, because this sounds like an envious and seething legacy media take of like, it's our job to report things that we think you can handle. It's our job to tell you what we think the facts of the case are. It's dangerous and it's bad for you guys to have access to this information without us deciding what is allowed to be read by you and what should be hidden. There are facts and then there are lies. Yeah, it just sounds really fucking weird. The graphic images of Kirk's death got millions of views and thousands of repostings on sites including X and Instagram, and that was exactly the point, Hemmer said. For those who were filming, sharing the content is part of processing. It's like, I have seen the most horrible thing and you need to see this too, because that's the only way you're going to grasp what happened. Isn't that what journalists do? Like when journalists go on the ground in like some shithole third world country and they see like uprisings or gang rapes or anything like that, they report that to the world at large and be like, look at these horrendous things that are happening in this area of the country that I have been in. Is there anything that can be done about this? Because this mistreatment of people is wild. Right? Isn't that just normal? What do they mean by this? Hemmer added, the choice of others to reshare is driven by the fact that social media rewards this kind of extreme content. Many who reshared the images are making money and gaining followers off of it, she notes. That's just part of the incentive structure of media today. When places like NPR or CNN or MSNBC report on grisly news events that happen, they get more viewers and they get more attention on their news channels, and that's just not okay. How dare they do that? You're a news company. You make money off of news. They play advertisements in the middle of news segments. I don't want to hear it, brother. That took our nerves. True. Those initial images of the event drive engagement online, but they don't provide any context as to why the shooting happened, said Renee Resta, an associate research professor at the McCourt School of Public Policy at Georgetown University. It's a breaking story! You're not going to sit here and lie to my face that if we had zero internet and we only had old media, that they wouldn't be immediately reporting on it without any further information as soon as that happened on our TVs. Like, that's just illogical. Of course it would be reported on as soon as it happened. What the fuck do you mean by this? When something happens, we go to our phone, we start hitting that refresh button, waiting to see the latest bit of information at the top of our feed, she said. There's an expectation that new information should be available to us every time we open the app. And this is why when I cover things that are like literally breaking and an ongoing event, I try to be as careful as possible. Like, as soon as like a name comes out and they're just like, oh, we suspect that this is the guy, I'm like, I don't want to say any names until we have some kind of confirmation, right? Like, that's just how I like to operate, because I feel like it would be bad if a name was put out there and then it happened to be the wrong guy, as has happened before multiple times. So it's like when there's a breaking story, yeah, there's going to be a lot of information coming out very, very quickly. It's just about being adept at winding through that information, deciding what can be seen with your own eyes and is probably true, and what needs further confirmation and should be taken with either a little or a massive grain of salt. Social media is spreading fear, added Darren Linville, co-director of the Media Forensics Hub at Clemson University. To abate that fear, people are hungry for information. When we can't get it, we're going to fill that void with something. Here we go. Here comes the spin. Enter the influencers. The earliest takes on a platform like X are the most likely to gain traction through algorithmic search, which means they can be monetized and used to grow audiences. That creates a perverse incentive for people to just be first, even if they don't have any information to add, said DeResta. And I think it's very obvious when people just try to put information out there to be first, rather than doing a good job. I was like, people had wanted me to stream on Wednesday, like, as soon as all of this happened. I didn't think I was particularly in a mental state to be able to handle doing that and be professional. And on top of that, since it happened on a Wednesday, I could wait several days, collect all of the information coming out over those days, and then do my stream on Friday. Like, yeah, there's something to be said for, like, the amount of attention and eyes that you can get by literally being the first. But you also have to make sure that you have ironclad information if you're going to be doing that. And I do agree that there are a lot of people, it does create that rush to just be first, whether you're right or wrong. Indeed, prominent influencers were quick to provide theories, or at the very least context, depending on their political lens. Some reminded their followers that Kirk had been in conflict with a far-right group called the Groypers. Had he actively been in conflict with them? I mean, also, to be fair, don't the Groypers just harass fucking everyone, dude? Like, I don't know, man. That doesn't sound right. Yeah, it's a very weird thing to lead with here, NPR. And suggested the shooter may have been one of them. Others said the shooting itself was evidence of the growing militarization of the left. These others are pattern recognizers. These others saying, oh, some lunatic shot a right-wing influencer, a guy who just wanted to have conversations. This is probably someone on the left. And wow, the pattern recognizers were correct. Holy shit, imagine being imbued with the power to notice. It's like being God himself. How can a human compare? TLDR, normies are too stupid to process info in real time. You need us to do your thinking for you and tell you what to believe. And that's part of, like, the encompassing drive to make people dependent on the government. And when most journalists have decided to take an activist stance, as well as defend their preferred version of government, like, without criticizing it for anything, right? It just makes complete sense that they're just like, yeah, you need to be listening to us. You need to depend on us for all of your information. Those influencers, those things on the Twitters, they're just grifting. They're just trying to grow their audiences. You can't know if they're telling you good information or not. Listen to us, the legacy media. Don't use your lying eyes. Later, after additional details emerged, still, others said the shooter was motivated by nihilistic video game culture. Yeah, I feel like anyone who's trying to blame quote-unquote video game culture is just a blithering idiot that should not be listened to. Like, they're not someone whose opinions matter anywhere, whether it's in politics or fighting over which fast food cheeseburger is better. Like, they just have no opinions that should ever be listened to under any circumstances. It's pretty insane that the legacy media have built their whole business on having the masses in a constant state of fear and panic try to blame social media for the same thing. But then again, leftists always accuse you of what they are doing. True and real. Each of these narratives exists within different communities, Linville said. As new details emerge, the communities bent them to their respective narratives. When your quote-unquote narrative is just rooted in the facts of what reality has presented to you, they're not really bending anything. After 22-year-old Tyler Robinson surrendered to authorities, some began highlighting his upbringing in apparently conservative household. Others looked for clues in his Halloween costumes. On the right, many pointed to Robinson's personal relationship with his roommate, who court documents say is a biological male in the process of transitioning genders. Anyone being like, he grew up in a conservative household, therefore he must be conservative, is being the maximum amount of disingenuous. Because how many stories all over social media do we have of people talking about how they're on the left and their parents are disgusting bigots and whatnot? How many people turned their parents in during the January 6th nonsense? Like, come the fuck on. Come the actual fuck on, bro. Everyone knew his motive as soon as the casings were read. The disingenuous pieces of shit just cannot stop lying for even a minute. They can't. And think of how many people will read this article and be like, oh my god, you know, they're so right. Like, everyone just kind of made up the own narrative in their head, and like, we just don't know. We just don't have enough information to really know what motivated this guy. And like, I'm an enlightened centrist because I take this position, and that's different from everyone else who has their minds made up already. They're all just like making something to fit their own tiny worldview. Holy shit. Was the fight over meaning as pronounced as with the cryptic messages etched into the bullet cartridges by the shooter? Right-wing influencers quickly cast them as a clear sign of the shooter's presumed leftist ideology, while others pointed out their roots in extremely online video game culture. The only one I could see coming from any kind of video game culture would be the oh whoa notices bulge. And even then, I would be like, that's tenuous to attribute it to video games when it was more just anime culture in general. But like, the Helldivers thing, a lot of people seem to not remember this, but the Helldivers community had a very robust and growing community of people who loved their game. They were like, wow, an indie developer that doesn't hate my guts, let's fucking go, this game is fun! And then they were like, actually, we do hate your guts. And they started banning everyone from the Discord who had like center-right political leanings or whatever. They had some like weird community managers who were banning people. They stood behind those community managers. They lost like 80% of their player base trying to play these like weird left-leaning cancel culture games. I don't know how many people remember that. But that was a thing that happened. So it doesn't surprise me that some far-left lunatic committing violence used a reference from that game. The day after Vance and Kimmel made their comments, a charging document filed by authorities in Utah told its own story of the killer. Robinson had grown up in a conservative household, but had started to lean to the political left, with a specific focus on gay and trans rights. According to the document, his mother allegedly told law enforcement that those changing views did appear to be a motivating factor behind shooting Kirk, who regularly attacked the trans community online and on his podcast. I like how they say attacked here. I like how they frame it as if he was attacking people, and thus he was an acceptable target. The guy, Charlie Kirk, spreads too much hate, Robinson said, according to the document. At the same time, assertions by the right-wing influencers that Robinson was part of an alleged larger, violent movement on the political left are, so far, unfounded. Robinson acted alone, according to the charging document, and nobody, not even his roommate and partner, appeared to be aware that he had decided to kill Kirk. First of all, I do not believe that his roommate didn't know. That text conversation reads not as fake created by an FBI man, but as fake to give an alibi for the roommate, to say that they didn't know. It does not read like a normal conversation. And Robinson is part of an alleged larger violent movement of the political left. Just because it's decentralized doesn't mean it doesn't exist. These people are fucking insane. Text messages in the charging document also show that he had only decided to conduct the assassination a bit over a week before he carried it out, further suggesting he was a lone actor. What about the 20-plus trans accounts that are being investigated for having prior knowledge of the assassination? What about all of those? You don't hate journos enough. You really don't. You will never hate fucking propagandists enough, man. Finally, the cryptic messages on the bullet cartridges did indeed seem to be an attempt to gain status online. The expletive messages are mostly a big meme. Robinson texted to his partner, according to court documents, "If I see notices bulge ooh woo on Fox News, I might have a stroke." Hemmer said that the picture painted by the charging document undercuts both of the words of Vance and Kimmel in the past week. No, it reinforces the words of Vance. What the fuck do you mean? What the fuck do you mean? It reinforces what Vance said because what he said is rooted in the reality of what happened. The shooter was not one of them, as some think Kimmel implied with his joke about the MAGA game. I'm tired of these people. But equally, there is no evidence that he is part of a wider movement of left-wing extremism. They actually just think we're gullible and stupid, and I mean, to be fair, they're not wrong. If we weren't gullible and stupid, when I started screaming about Bridge over a year and a half ago, more people would have noticed, but instead we had cacophonies of, we're winning, DEI is going away, yay! So yes, the average person is very gullible and very stupid. Hemmer also notes, however, a late-night host making a factually dubious statement in a monologue is not the same as mobilizing the power of the state against political enemies. Jimmy Kimmel putting out fake news to his audience. I would have said massive, but we know it's not massive anymore. Okay, putting out fake news to his audience in order to try and pin this horrific event on someone that had nothing to do with it. That's completely different from the vice president talking about who actually committed this crime. These people are fucking nutcases, man. But Nuance fails an online platforms designed to boost and sustain engagement and promote content likely to provoke a reaction from users. Already, social media pundits on the left are questioning whether the text and interviews in the charging documents are real. Meanwhile, those on the right are agitating to declare left-wing activists as terrorists. And this links to another NPR article that is, Trump says he plans to designate Antifa as a terrorist organization. Good, he should, because they are. Behind it all, Linville said, the technology is fueling an ancient human instinct. People want to believe what they want to believe. Don't believe your lying eyes. Just believe our media narrative, you know?